how do I cast the two brothers? I've wanted to work with forever and ever and ever, because without question, he's a goddamn icon. And I'd worked with Jeremy before. I did Kingdom of Heaven with Jeremy, who played one of the powerhouses in Jerusalem at the time of Salah-ad-Din. And so I was familiar with Jeremy's elegance, and I wanted the brother to be superlatively elegant and happy to live as a gentleman. Shopkeeper, he would never hit me if I said he was a shopkeeper, but Gucci as a shop, it's a shop, it sells clothing. It's a fashion house, is the better way of putting it. I don't think he thought about that. He thought it was a way, because in those days, they'd be selling leather goods, handbags, luggage, etc., etc. They hadn't quite shifted gear to the fashion house. Aldo was of the other school, slightly younger, was a bad boy about town, loved the women, and was a constant playboy, but at the same time was evolving the business in a quite different way than his brother in Milan. So that was chalk and cheese. They're quite different. Al comes off piste when you're writing. You've written something, you got the scene flying, and he loves to ad lib. So he comes off the ski slope and he'll ad lib on the side. But what's happening is you're getting rosebuds falling from his mouth every 2 or 3 seconds, so you let him run. And then sometimes if he goes on a bit, I'll say, come back on. So you then suddenly come back on the scene, complete and finished. So that I can look at it after and say, oh my God, I got it. So it's a cherry picking, it's a rose picking thing of saying, that's marvelous and that's marvelous. So he's a great ad libist. But you can't let him go on too long. You've got to come back on the story. And that to me was one of my best experiences. Because Al, considering who he is a bit of a tour de force in American cinema and theatre. That he was the nicest man who could easily be difficult. But I don't tolerate difficult anymore because I don't have to either. But I got on great with him. Paolo is written in a very amusing fashion. It's nearly satire. In fact, I think a lot of this, I was pushing this film slightly in the direction of being satirical. And it certainly is between the father, Aldo, and Paolo. And I always liked the idea that Paolo's an idiot, but I put the line in, my son's an idiot. Paolo's an idiot, but he's my idiot. So, however, the shortfall on Paolo was Aldo would always love him as a son, even having put him in prison. Right? I like that. I love that connection. So it means Aldo's a good man. We had some research material, and Paolo looked just like that. I said, how are you going to do this? He said, well, makeup. I said, that's the hardest makeup to do, to put it on from here to here. You're doing that, and you're going to get creases. It's the hardest thing to do. We found a genius in Scandinavia who was able to have this done every morning. He was there at 4:30 a.m. with a 4-hour makeup. Then he'd arrive on the set looking, okay, let's go. And there he was, and he was a completely different person. Maurizio is really smart. But Maurizio is very defensive and fragile because he doesn't like to be pushed around and be put in the place where he doesn't want to be. And his father wants that for him all the time. And that's where it drives them apart. Paolo was had completely overestimated his talent as a designer. And in fact wasn't much of as a fashion designer in the way that fashion was going at that particular moment. So in other words, he was slightly out of fashion, and even the clothes he wore were very OTT, over the top. And so the family were always slightly embarrassed about him wanting to be part of the Gucci thing and design clothing for Gucci, because they couldn't have that under the Gucci label. Hina was an actual TV late night, I'll tell you a fortune person in Italy at the time. So what we did was literally what she was. What you see, we simply copied her setup on television. That's what she did. And she would talk to the audience at night saying, pick up the phone, call me now, and I'll tell you where you're going, and I'll read your fortune. I won't necessarily tell you, you won't necessarily hear good news, but I'm going to tell you what I think the truth is. And off that impressed Patricia. But Patricia wasn't hoping anything. She was just, I think she was just, the way I did it was, she sitting there one night, sitting in the kitchen, and can't sleep because of various things. And maybe he's already starting to get anxious about the relationship. And already stepping further than she should be. And seeing Pina on television and going, let's talk to her. And it's random. The random thing starts to evolve. And so I've known Salma for a number of years, and I thought, I asked her, would you do this small part? But I'd love to have you do it. And she did. She can then admire richness that she hasn't got and want to be sophisticated. She wants part of that. But she feels she may never have that, because is she aware of the fact she doesn't have that kind of class? So she's reaching for the class that she might not ever attain. In many respects, she didn't, even though she was adored by a lot of people, because she was such a she was a bit of a showstopper when she was younger. So she looked good on his arm. So he felt good by having her on his arm. And don't forget, he was probably very much in love with her. I met Darius. I know him through my eldest son. And he was great. And Darius can cope with any number of cameras. He just flies with the ball. And so we're a very, very efficient team. And it all looks beautiful. Arthur and I have known each other, 35, 40 years. And I started by doing Pepsi Cola commercials. Arthur's a new boy on the block, and I've now already got a company that's my company's 54 years old. Arthur, 54 years. I formed it when I was 27. And so Arthur Max came to me from a guy from America saying, hey, I need to do, no. I said, okay, well, try him out. And he was good. But I always had 2 or 3 really good designers working with me, because I was a good designer, so I know it. And Arthur gradually evolved into doing a lot of the big ones. And then we just stayed together on the big ones, because as I'm coming out of one, I'm already prepping another one.